The morning sun filtered through the large windows of Classroom 7B on the third floor of New Pyongyang International School. Hana Kim stood at the front of the room, holding a digital tablet with the class roster. She was nervous. This was her first day as a substitute teacher at this school, and she wanted to make a good impression. "Good morning, everyone," she said with a warm smile. "My name is Miss Kim. I'll be your teacher today because Mr. Park is sick. Let's start with attendance." The 12 students sat at their desks, watching her with curious eyes. Some whispered to each other. Others looked out the window at the colony sprawling below them. New Pyongyang was a frontier settlement, built only 15 years ago on the edge of explored space. Beyond the city limits, protective shields shimmered in the air, keeping out the harsh environment of this alien world. Hana called the first name. "Minho? Here." A boy with messy black hair raised his hand. He had an eager expression on his face. "Yuna?" "Present," said a girl with paint stains on her fingers. She had been sketching something in a notebook. "Woojin?" "Here, Miss Kim." A tall boy nodded. He sat up straight, more alert than the others. She continued down the list. Jiwoo, a quiet child with glasses. Do-hyun, who grinned when she called his name. Nari, who had organized her desk perfectly with color-coded folders. The other 6 students all answered when called. Hana relaxed a little. The children seemed nice. She pulled up the lesson plan on her tablet. History class today. The topic was Humanity's Expansion into the Stars. "All right, class. Today we're going to talk about how humans left Earth and built colonies like this one," Hana began. "Can anyone tell me why humans decided to explore space?" Minho's hand shot up. "Because Earth was getting crowded. That's part of it," Hana agreed. "What else?" "Resources," Jiwoo said quietly. "We needed materials that were running out on Earth." "Exactly. Humans have always been explorers. When we face problems, we don't give up. We find solutions. We adapt. We move forward." Hana wrote key points on the digital board. She had lived this history herself. 3 years ago, she had been a colonial marine, protecting settlements just like this one. But she didn't want to think about those days. Teaching was supposed to be a fresh start. The lesson continued smoothly. Yuna asked about the different types of colony worlds. Do-hyun made a joke about aliens that made half the class laugh. Nari took detailed notes. Outside the window, the colony went about its normal business. Transport vehicles flew between buildings. People walked on elevated pathways. Everything was peaceful. Then the alarm started. At first, it was just a low whine, the kind of sound that made everyone stop and look around. Hana froze mid-sentence. The students looked confused. "What's that?" Before Hana could answer, the alarm grew louder. A harsh, blaring sound that echoed through the entire building. Red lights began flashing in the corners of the classroom. "Is it a drill?" Nari asked, her voice tight with worry. Hana's military training kicked in immediately. She knew all the different alarm patterns. This wasn't a drill. This was a real emergency. Her heart began to pound, but she kept her face calm. The children were watching her. "Everyone stay in your seats," she said firmly. "Don't panic. I'm going to check what's happening." She walked quickly to the classroom door and opened it slightly. The hallway outside was chaos. Teachers were running. Students from other classes were streaming past. Some crying. Some shouting. An adult man ran by, his face pale with terror. He didn't even look at her. Hana heard screaming coming from somewhere below. Real screaming, the kind that made her blood run cold. She stepped into the hallway and grabbed a passing teacher by the arm. "What's happening?" "One." The woman's eyes were wide with fear. "Raiders. They came through the shields somehow. They're in the school. We have to evacuate." She pulled free and kept running. Raiders. Hana's mind raced. That meant the Vrelians, the scavenger species that attacked frontier colonies. She had fought them before during her marine days. They were dangerous, ruthless, and they took prisoners. Through the hallway window, she saw ships descending from the sky. Dark, angular vessels that definitely weren't human. They were landing all over the colony. The shields that were supposed to protect them were failing. She could see explosions in the distance. More screams echoed through the building. Closer now. From the floor below, Hana made a decision in less than 2 seconds. She stepped back into the classroom and shut the door firmly. "Miss Kim, what's wrong?" Yuna asked. Her hands were shaking. Hana walked to the windows and pulled down the emergency shutters. The room dimmed. She kept her voice steady and strong. "Listen to me, very carefully. There are dangerous people in the building. We're going to stay right here where it's safe. Everyone move away from the door and go to that corner." She pointed to the far corner of the room. "Away from windows and the door." "Are we in danger?" Jiwoo whispered. "Not if we're smart and stay calm," Hana said. She moved quickly to the door and engaged the electronic lock. It was a good lock, designed for security. But she knew it might not be enough. She began pushing desks against the door, creating a barricade. Woojin stood up. "I'll help." "Me too," said Minho. "No. You all need to go to that corner right now." "That's an order." Her voice had changed. It wasn't a teacher's voice anymore. It was the voice of someone who had commanded soldiers in combat. The children heard the authority in it and obeyed immediately. While they huddled together in the corner, Hana continued fortifying the door. She stacked chairs on top of the desks. She pulled a heavy filing cabinet in front of everything. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency. She had done this before, in different places, under enemy fire. The screaming in the building was getting worse. She heard heavy footsteps in the hallway. Footsteps that were too heavy to be human. Something large was moving out there. Hana finished the barricade and moved to the corner with her students. She positioned herself between them and the door. Nari was crying silently. Do-hyun's usual smile was gone. Yuna clutched her sketchbook like a shield. The younger children looked absolutely terrified. "Look at me," Hana said quietly but firmly. All 12 pairs of eyes focused on her. "I'm not going to let anything happen to you. Do you understand? Nothing is getting through that door, and even if it does, it has to go through me first. You are safe." "Are you sure?" Minho's voice cracked. Hana looked at each child in turn. She thought about running, about trying to evacuate like the others. But the hallways were full of chaos and danger. In here, they had walls, a locked door, and her. Sometimes the best defense was staying put. "Yes," she said. "I'm sure. Now everyone stay quiet. And stay close together." Outside, the sounds of the raid continued. Explosions rumbled in the distance. Alien voices barked harsh commands. The footsteps in the hallway came closer, then passed by. For now, they were safe. But Hana knew this was just the beginning. Her peaceful new life as a teacher had just ended. The warrior she used to be was waking up again. And this time, she wasn't protecting a military objective. She was protecting 12 children who trusted her completely. The door rattled once as something brushed against it from outside. The students gasped. Hana didn't move. She just stared at the door, her body tense and ready. Whatever was coming, she would be ready too. The classroom was silent, except for the sound of breathing. 12 students huddled in the corner, while Hana stood guard between them and the barricaded door. Outside, the sounds of chaos continued. Screams, crashes, and those heavy alien footsteps that made the floor vibrate slightly. Hana's mind was working fast. She needed to assess their situation. The classroom had one door, now blocked. 3 windows, now shuttered. She mentally cataloged everything in the room that could be useful. The storage closet, the emergency supply cabinet that every classroom was supposed to have, the fire suppression system. "I need to look around the room," she told the children quietly. "Stay exactly where you are. Don't make any noise." She moved carefully, checking the storage closet first. Inside, she found cleaning supplies, extra tablets, some old textbooks, and thankfully, an emergency supply box. She pulled it out. Inside was basic first aid, water bottles, nutrition bars, a flashlight, and an emergency beacon. The beacon was small, designed to send a distress signal, but when she activated it, nothing happened. The display showed damage to the transmitter. Hana bit back a curse. Of course it was broken. Nothing was ever easy. She checked the windows next, carefully opening one shutter just a crack. What she saw made her stomach drop. The colony was under full attack. Vrelian raiders were everywhere. She could see them clearly now. Massive creatures, at least 8 feet tall, with armored exoskeletons that gleamed in the sunlight. They moved with brutal efficiency, dragging colonists from buildings, loading them onto transport vehicles. Some humans were fighting back, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. A Vrelian noticed movement at her window. It turned its head toward her, and for a moment, their eyes met. The alien's eyes were cold and yellow, completely without mercy. It started moving toward the school building. Hana closed the shutter immediately and stepped back. Her heart pounded, but her hands were steady. 3 years away from combat hadn't made her soft. The training was still there. Buried under the teacher persona she had tried to become. "Miss Kim?" Woojin whispered. "What did you see?" "Don't worry about it," she said, returning to the group. "We're safe in here." But she knew the truth. The Vrelians were systematic. They would search every building, every room. It was only a matter of time before they came back to this door. And when they did, a simple lock and some furniture wouldn't stop them for long. She needed to think like a Marine again. Assess the enemy. The Vrelians were strong, armored, and aggressive. But they were also overconfident. They saw humans as weak prey. They didn't expect resistance, especially not from ordinary colonists. That was their weakness. Hana looked at her students. Minho was trying to be brave, but his hands were shaking. Yuna had her eyes closed, probably trying to pretend this wasn't happening. Nari was still crying silently, tears running down her face. Jiwoo stared at Hana with complete trust, as if she could solve anything. Dohyun, who always made jokes, looked terrified. "Listen to me," Hana said softly. "I know you're scared. I would be worried if you weren't scared. Fear is normal. But fear doesn't mean we give up. Do you understand?" Some of the children nodded. "I used to be a soldier," Hana continued. "Before I became a teacher, I fought in battles. I protected people. And I learned something important. The people who survive aren't always the strongest or the fastest. They're the people who refuse to quit. They're the people who stay calm and think clearly. That's what we're going to do." "Are they going to find us?" a small girl named Heijin asked. "Maybe," Hana said honestly. "But if they do, I have a plan. For now, we wait. We stay quiet. We stay together." Heavy footsteps sounded in the hallway outside. Everyone froze. The footsteps were slow, methodical. Something was checking each room. Hana heard a door being tested. Then another. The footsteps came closer. She moved silently to the barricaded door and listened. On the other side, she could hear breathing. Not human breathing. It was deeper, with a rasping quality. A shadow appeared under the door crack. Something massive was standing right outside. The door handle rattled. Once. Twice. Then the entire door shook as something pushed against it. The barricade held. Hana heard an alien grunt of annoyance. Her hands clenched into fists. Every muscle in her body was tense, ready to fight if that door came down. The students behind her were absolutely silent. Even Nari had stopped crying. Her hand pressed over her mouth. The Vrelian pushed against the door one more time, harder. The barricade shifted slightly, but held. Hana could hear the creature making clicking sounds, probably communicating with others. Then, After what felt like an eternity, the footsteps moved away. It was checking other rooms, looking for easier targets. Hana let out a slow breath. They had passed the first test, but she knew the raiders would be back. Once they had secured the easy targets, they would come back for the locked rooms. They wouldn't leave anything behind. That was close, Woojin whispered. Yes, it was, Hana agreed. And it will happen again. So we need to prepare. She went back to examining the emergency supplies. The broken beacon bothered her. If she could fix it, they could call for help. But the transmitter chip was cracked. She would need tools, parts, and time. She looked at Jiwoo, the quiet child with glasses who always seemed to be thinking. Jiwoo, are you good with electronics? She asked. The child blinked. A little. My dad teaches engineering. Come here. I need your help. While Jiwoo examined the beacon, Hana continued planning. She opened the emergency supply cabinet and found more useful items. A small fire extinguisher, a basic toolkit, some chemical supplies for cleaning that could be repurposed. Her mind cataloged everything, sorting items into categories. Useful, possibly useful, useless. Miss Kim, Woojin said suddenly. I know something about the school. What is it? My father works security here. He showed me the building plans once. There's a maintenance tunnel that connects to this floor. It's behind the storage closet. It leads to the evacuation area. Actors, and one. People send. Actors, Hana's eyes narrowed. That could be useful. An escape route, but it could also be dangerous. Moving through tunnels meant limited visibility and nowhere to run if they encountered raiders. Still, it was good to have options. Show me, she said. Woojin led her to the storage closet. Behind some shelves, there was indeed a maintenance panel. It was locked, but Hana used a tool from the kit to open it. Behind the panel was a dark tunnel, just big enough for a person to crawl through. Good work, Woojin, she said. We'll keep this in mind. Hours passed. The sounds outside changed. The initial chaos of the attack had settled into something more organized. The Vrelians were securing their prizes, loading their ships, preparing to leave, but they weren't gone yet. Hana could still hear them moving through the building. She rationed out water and nutrition bars to the students. They ate in silence. Yuna went back to sketching in her notebook, using it to cope with the stress. Nari had organized the remaining supplies, probably to give herself something to do. Minho kept watching the door like he expected it to burst open any second. Miss Kim, Do-hyun said quietly. Can I ask you something? Of course. When you were a soldier, were you scared? Hana considered the question. She could lie, tell him she was never afraid. But these children deserved honesty. Yes, she said. Every single time. Fear is part of being human. But I learned to use it. Fear makes you alert. It makes you careful. The key is not letting it control you. How do you do that? You focus on what you can control. I can't control what's happening outside, but I can control what happens in this room. I can keep you safe. That's my job right now, and I'm good at my job. Jiwoo looked up from the beacon. You have as much time as you need, Hana said. Good work. As evening approached, the classroom grew darker. Hana didn't turn on the lights, wanting to avoid drawing attention. They sat in the dimness, listening to the sounds of the occupation outside. The raiders were still there, still searching, still taking prisoners. But inside classroom 7B, 12 children were safe. Hana sat with her back against the wall, watching the door, watching the windows, watching everything. She thought about her old Marine squad, the battles she had fought, the people she had lost. She had quit that life because she was tired of violence, but violence had found her anyway. And this time, she wasn't fighting for a military objective or strategic position. She was fighting for 12 lives that depended on her. These children trusted her completely. They believed she could protect them. Hana looked at each sleeping child. At Jiwoo, still working on the beacon. At Woojin, sitting alertly like a young soldier. She would not let them down. Whatever it took, however long she had to hold this position, she would keep them safe. The Vrelians had made a mistake when they came to this school. They thought they would find easy victims. Instead, they had found a guardian who would die before surrendering her students. Night fell over New Pyongyang. But the darkness brought no peace. Hana sat near the door, listening to every sound in the hallway. The children slept in shifts, huddled together for warmth and comfort. She had made them as comfortable as possible with spare jackets and materials from the storage closet. But the floor was hard, and the situation was stressful. Still, children were resilient. They slept while they could. Jiwoo was still awake, working on the emergency beacon by the light of a small flashlight. The child had surprising patience and skill for someone so young. Hana watched as tiny fingers carefully manipulated wires and components. "How's it going?" she whispered. "The main transmitter is broken," Jiwoo replied softly. "But I think I can use parts from the classroom tablets to boost the secondary transmitter. It won't be as strong, but it might reach someone." "That's excellent thinking. My dad always says that humans are good at making things work, even when they're broken. He says that's why we survive when other species don't." Hana smiled slightly. "Your dad is right." She moved to one of the windows and carefully opened the shutter, a tiny crack. Outside, she could see Vrelian patrols moving through the streets. They had set up command posts at major intersections. Their ships sat in the colony plaza like sleeping monsters. Some buildings were burning in the distance, painting the night sky orange. But she also saw something that gave her hope. Small groups of human colonists were moving through shadows, avoiding the patrols. The occupation wasn't complete. Humans were still fighting back, still resisting. The Vrelians controlled the major areas. But they didn't control everything. A transmission crackled through the emergency beacon suddenly. Jiwoo had managed to get the receiver working. Hana moved quickly to listen. "All units, evacuation point Beta is compromised." Repeat. Beta is compromised. Raiders have secured the main plaza. Military response is still 4 hours out. All survivors should shelter in place and avoid contact. The transmission dissolved into static. 4 more hours. That was a long time to hold out. But at least, help was coming. "Did you hear that?" Jiwoo whispered. "The military is coming." "Yes, I heard it," Hana said. "But we can't rely on them getting here in time. We need to be ready for anything." She heard movement and turned to see Woojin sitting up. The boy looked tired but alert. "Miss Kim, I've been thinking," he said quietly, not wanting to wake the others. "About the maintenance tunnel. If we wait until the military arrives, we might be safer. But if the raiders come back before then, we'll need an escape route," Hana finished. "I know. I've been thinking the same thing. I can go scout the tunnel," Woojin offered. "See if it's clear." "Absolutely not," Hana said firmly. "Nobody goes anywhere alone. We stay together. That's the rule." "But I'm the only one who knows where it goes," Woojin protested. "And I'm fast. I can check and come back." Hana saw the determination in his eyes. The boy wanted to help, wanted to do something useful instead of just waiting. She understood that feeling. But she couldn't risk losing him. "Listen to me, Woojin. I know you want to help. But the most helpful thing you can do right now is stay here and be ready. If we need to use that tunnel, I'll need someone who knows the way to lead the younger students. That someone is you. Can you do that?" The boy thought about it, then nodded slowly. "Yes, Miss Kim. Good. Now try to get some rest." As Woojin settled back down, Hana continued her vigil. She thought about the situation from the Vrelians' perspective. They had come for resources and prisoners. The colony had valuable technology, and human captives were worth money on the slave markets. It was a business operation for them. Brutal, but logical. The problem was that humans didn't follow their logic. Humans didn't surrender when they were supposed to. They didn't give up when the odds were bad. They fought back. They hid. They resisted. And sometimes, when pushed hard enough, ordinary humans became extraordinarily dangerous. Hana had seen it before. During her marine days, she had witnessed colonists who had never held weapons fight like demons when their families were threatened. There was something in humans, some deep instinct that refused to accept defeat when protecting their own. She looked at the sleeping children. Minho was curled up next to Do-hyun. Nari had her arms around two younger girls. Yuna still clutched her sketchbook, even in sleep. These were just children, innocent and young. But they were learning a hard lesson tonight. They were learning what it meant to survive. More sounds came from the hallway. Footsteps again, but different this time. Lighter. Human footsteps. Someone was moving carefully, trying to be quiet. Hana tensed, ready for anything. A soft knock came at the door. 3 taps, pause, 2 taps. "Is anyone in there?" a voice whispered. "This is Colony Security Officer Park. If you're in there, knock back." Hana hesitated. It could be a trap. But the voice sounded human and genuinely concerned. She knocked back. The same pattern. "Thank God," the voice said. "Listen, I can't open the door. The raiders are doing systematic searches. They're about 30 minutes away from this section. You need to evacuate now. Use the maintenance tunnels if you can. Get to evacuation point Delta. It's still secure." "How many raiders are searching?" Hana asked quietly through the door. 3 teams, 9 total. They're heavily armed. Don't try to fight them. Just run. "Copy that," Hana said, using military terminology without thinking. "How much time before they reach this hallway?" There was a pause. "Wait. Who are you?" "You sound military. Former colonial marine. I've got 12 students in here. Can you provide escort to evacuation point Delta?" "Negative. I've got wounded civilians. I'm moving. But I can tell you the route. From the maintenance tunnel, go left at the first junction, then straight for 200 meters. You'll come out near the medical building. From there, head northeast to the old storage warehouses. Delta is set up in Warehouse 5. Understood. Thank you, Officer Park. Good luck. And Marine? Those students are lucky to have you." The footsteps moved away quickly. Hana stood and began waking the children gently. "Everyone up. Quietly. We're moving." The students woke quickly, fear making them alert. They gathered around her, waiting for instructions. "We're going to use the maintenance tunnel," Hana explained. "We'll move in single file. No talking, no noise. Woojin will be right behind me to guide us. The older students will help the younger ones. Does everyone understand?" They nodded. "Jiwoo, how's that beacon coming?" "Almost done. Just need 2 more minutes." "You've got 1 minute," Hana said. "We're leaving in 60 seconds, whether it's done or not." She quickly organized the group, Woojin behind her. Then the younger students, paired with older ones. Nari would bring up the rear, because she was organized and responsible. Hana gave her the flashlight and simple instructions. "If anyone falls behind, you stop and wait for them. If something happens to me, Woojin knows the way. You follow him, and you don't stop. Clear?" "Yes, Miss Kim," Nari said, her voice shaking but determined. Jiwoo finished working on the beacon and pressed the activation button. A small green light began blinking. "It's working. I'm getting a signal out." "Excellent work," Hana said. "Now we move. Everyone into the storage closet." She opened the maintenance panel fully. The tunnel beyond was dark and narrow. It smelled of dust and metal. Hana climbed in first, using a second flashlight she had found. Behind her, she heard the children following. The tunnel was tight. They had to crawl on hands and knees. Hana moved carefully, checking ahead constantly. Behind her, She could hear the children breathing hard, the younger ones whimpering slightly. But they were moving. They were staying quiet. They were being brave. At the first junction, she turned left as Officer Park had instructed. The tunnel continued, seemingly endless. Her knees ached from crawling on metal, her shoulders scraped against the walls. But she kept moving. Behind her, Minho whispered, "Miss Kim, Heijin is scared." "We're all scared, Minho," Hana whispered back. "But we're also all moving forward. That's what matters. Keep going." They crawled for what felt like hours, but was probably only 15 minutes. Finally, Hana saw light ahead. An exit panel. She reached it and carefully pushed it open, checking the area beyond first. They had emerged in a maintenance room in the medical building. It was empty. Through the windows, she could see Vrelian patrols outside. But they weren't close. She helped each child climb out of the tunnel, counting them as they came. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 12. Everyone had made it. "We're doing great," she told them quietly. "Now we need to move fast to the warehouses. Stay close. Stay low. And if I say run, you run. Understood?" "Yes, Miss Kim," they chorused in whispers. Hana led them out of the medical building through a side exit. The colony streets were dark, except for fires burning in the distance. She moved from shadow to shadow, the children following, like a line of ducklings. Her military training guided every step. She checked corners, avoided open spaces, and kept them away from the patrol routes. They were halfway to the warehouses when she heard it. The sound of Vrelian voices nearby. A patrol was coming their way. She quickly pushed the children into a narrow alley between two buildings. "Don't move. Don't breathe loud," she whispered. The patrol passed by, 3 massive Vrelians talking in their harsh language. They were so close that Hana could have reached out and touched them. But they didn't look into the alley. They walked past, completely unaware. After they were gone, Hana led the children out and continued toward the warehouses. The old storage buildings were ahead. She could see humans guarding Warehouse 5. They had made it. As they approached, a guard raised a weapon, then lowered it when she saw children. "We have 12 students from the school," Hana said. "Officer Park sent us. Get inside, quickly," the guard said. "You're the first group from that sector. We thought everyone was captured." Inside the warehouse, there were about 50 other colonists. Families, workers, people who had escaped the raid. Medical staff were treating wounded. A communication station was set up in the corner, coordinating with the incoming military forces. The children were taken to a safe area and given food and water. Parents who had been separated found their children. Woojin's father was there, wounded but alive. He hugged his son tightly, tears running down his face. One by one, the children were reunited with their families or placed with caretakers. They all looked back at Hana before leaving, gratitude in their eyes. Nari came up to her and hugged her quickly. "Thank you, Miss Kim. You saved us. You saved yourselves," Hana said gently. "You were brave when it mattered." As the last child was taken care of, Hana finally allowed herself to relax slightly. But she knew it wasn't over. The Vrelians were still out there, still hunting, and in a few hours, the real fighting would begin when the military arrived. She sat down against a wall, exhausted but alert. Someone brought her water and food. She accepted gratefully. A military officer approached her. "You're the Marine who brought those kids out?" "Former Marine," Hana corrected. "Substitute teacher now." The officer shook her head in amazement. 12 kids through occupied territory. That's impressive. We could use someone with your experience when the assault starts. Hana looked at the children scattered around the warehouse, safe for now. She thought about the classroom, the siege, the crawl through the tunnels. She had tried to leave this life behind, but maybe some things you never really leave. "What do you need?" she asked. The officer smiled grimly. "We need to show these raiders what happens when you attack humans, especially when you threaten our children." The warehouse had become a makeshift command center. Military personnel were arriving through secure routes, preparing for the counterattack. But 3 hours still remained before the main force would arrive. 3 hours during which the Vrelians continued their systematic search of the colony. Hana had been helping organize the civilians when alarms suddenly blared through the warehouse communication system. A panicked voice crackled over the speakers. Vrelian patrol approaching Warehouse 5. Multiple contacts. They've detected our position. Everyone in the warehouse froze. Then, chaos erupted. Parents grabbed their children. Guards moved to defensive positions. The military officer who had spoken to Hana earlier began shouting orders. All civilians to the back of the warehouse. Combat personnel, take positions. We hold them here. But Hana saw the problem immediately. The warehouse had only a dozen guards and a handful of armed colonists. Against a full Vrelian assault team, they wouldn't last long, and if the warehouse fell, everyone inside, including the children she had just saved, would be captured or killed. She couldn't let that happen. How many raiders? She asked the officer. Sensors show at least 6, maybe more. They're moving in fast. 6 Vrelians. Against 12 defenders, half of whom were untrained colonists. The odds were terrible. But Hana had faced worse during her Marine days. The key was not fighting fair. It was fighting smart. I need weapons, she said. The officer looked at her. You're really going back to this? I never left. Hana admitted. I just tried to pretend I did. I made it half it. I never left Hana about. Give me a weapon and let me do what I'm trained for. She was handed a pulse rifle and ammunition. The familiar weight felt right in her hands. 3 years of teaching hadn't erased the muscle memory. She checked the weapon with practiced efficiency, loaded it, and moved to a defensive position near the main entrance. Other defenders spread out around her. Wu Jin's father, despite his injuries, took up a position with a pistol. 2 colony security officers flanked the entrance. A former Marine like herself nodded at her from across the room. Everyone knew this was going to be bad. The children had been moved to the far back of the warehouse, behind stacked cargo containers. Hana could see Minho peeking around a corner. Watching. She caught his eye and shook her head firmly. He disappeared back into hiding. They're at the perimeter, someone called out. Through the high windows, Hana saw movement, large shapes moving with military precision. The Vrelians had found them, and they were coming in force. She counted 7, not 6. 7 creatures that could each tear apart 3 humans without much effort. Hold fire until they breach, the officer commanded. Make every shot count. The warehouse door exploded inward. The metal twisted and flew across the room like paper. A Vrelian warrior stepped through, 8 feet of armored death. Its yellow eyes scanned the warehouse, focusing on the defenders. Open fire, the officer screamed. The warehouse erupted with weapons fire. Pulse rifles sent energy bolts into the raiders. But the Vrelians had good armor. The first one staggered under the assault, but didn't fall. It roared, a sound that made everyone's blood run cold, and charged forward. Hana aimed carefully and fired 3 shots at the creature's joints, where the armor was weakest. The third shot connected. The Vrelian's leg buckled, and it crashed to the ground. She didn't waste time celebrating. There were 6 more coming through the door. The battle turned into chaos. Vrelians poured into the warehouse, returning fire with their own weapons. Energy bolts destroyed cargo containers and set fires. 1 guard went down, then another. The colonists were being pushed back toward the civilians. A Vrelian spotted Hana and turned its weapon toward her. She rolled behind a metal container as energy bolts exploded where she had been standing. The heat was intense. She came up firing, aiming for the creature's head. Her shots hit its face shield, cracking it. The Vrelian roared in pain and rage. That's when Hana realized something important. The Vrelians were angry. They weren't expecting this much resistance. They had raided dozens of human colonies before, and humans usually surrendered or fled. But here, humans were fighting back hard. It was confusing them, making them aggressive and careless. She used that. "Concentrate fire on the lead one," she shouted to the other defenders. "Make them cautious." Everyone focused on the same target. The Vrelian at the front took dozens of hits. Its armor held, but the creature was forced to take cover. The others behind it slowed down, suddenly wary. They had expected easy prey. This wasn't easy anymore, but there were still too many of them and too few defenders. Another guard fell. The colonists were running out of ammunition. The Vrelians were adapting to the resistance, coordinating their assault better. One of the raiders managed to flank the defensive line. It was heading straight for the civilians, including the children. Hana saw it and made a split-second decision. She left her cover and ran to intercept. The Vrelian saw her coming and raised its weapon. Hana slid under its line of fire and came up inside its reach. At close range, the armor didn't matter as much. She fired her rifle directly into the weak points at its joints and neck. The creature staggered. She fired again. It fell, but now she was exposed, out in the open. Two more Vrelians turned toward her. She had nowhere to run. This was it. Then Wujin's father appeared, firing his pistol at the raiders to draw their attention. Another defender threw a grenade. The explosion threw one Vrelian back and disoriented the other. Hana used the distraction to get back to cover. "You're crazy!" Wujin's father shouted at her. "I learned from experience," she shouted back. The battle continued. Minutes felt like hours. Bodies littered the warehouse floor, human and Vrelian. The defenders were down to half strength, but they had also taken down 3 of the raiders. The remaining 4 were more careful now, taking cover, being tactical. Then something changed. The Vrelians stopped advancing. Their leader barked orders in their language. They began retreating, dragging their wounded with them. "They're pulling back!" someone yelled. Hana didn't celebrate. She knew what this meant. The raiders were regrouping. They would come back with reinforcements. This was just the first round. The military officer checked casualties. 5 defenders dead, several wounded, but they had held. Against 7 Vrelian warriors, a handful of humans had held the line. "Why did they retreat?" a young colonist asked. "They were winning." "No, they weren't," Hana said, checking her rifle's ammunition. "If the cost is too high, it's not worth it. We made it too expensive, but they'll be back," the officer said. "Yes. And next time, they'll bring more." Hana walked to where the children were hiding. They came out slowly, eyes wide with fear, but also something else. Respect, maybe even inspiration. They had seen adults fight to protect them. They had seen humans refuse to surrender. Yuna approached her. "Ms. Kim, you were amazing." "I was scared," Hana admitted. "But I couldn't let them hurt you." Minho looked at the fallen defenders being tended to by medical staff. "Some of them died protecting us." "Yes," Hana said quietly. "That's what humans do. When we love something, when we need to protect something, we fight. Even when the odds are bad. Even when we're scared. That's what makes us different." The military officer came over. "We've got word from the incoming fleet. They've accelerated their approach. They'll be here in 1 hour. Not 3. When they arrive, they'll hit the Vrelians hard." 1 hour, Hana repeated. "Can we hold that long?" "We have to." The defenders prepared for the next assault. Everyone knew the Vrelians would come back soon, probably with twice as many warriors. Hana found herself thinking about her old Marine squad. They had died fighting overwhelming odds to protect a colony evacuation. She had been the only survivor, carrying guilt for years. She had quit the military because she couldn't face that kind of loss again. But now she understood something she hadn't before. Her squad hadn't died for nothing. They had died so others could live. That wasn't failure. That was the highest purpose. And if she died here today, protecting these children, protecting these colonists, it wouldn't be failure either. It would be everything humans were supposed to be. "They're coming back!" a lookout shouted. Everyone took positions. Through the broken entrance, Hana saw them. More Vrelians this time, at least 12. They had called in reinforcements. The raiders were done playing careful. They were going to overwhelm the warehouse with sheer force. "This is going to be rough," the officer said. "Yes, it is," Hana agreed. "But we hold anyway. Because that's what humans do." She raised her rifle, ready for the second wave. Behind her, 12 children believed she could protect them. Around her, colonists, who had never been soldiers, prepared to fight like warriors. Above them, a human fleet was racing to save them. The Vrelians had made a critical mistake. They had come to this colony expecting prey. They had pushed humans into a corner, threatened their children, and expected surrender. Instead, they found out what happens when humans have something to protect. They found out why. Despite being weaker and smaller than most species in the galaxy, humans had built an empire among the stars. Because humans don't know how to quit. Because when you threaten what they love, they become the most dangerous thing in the universe. The Vrelians charged. The defenders opened fire. And in that warehouse, for one more hour, ordinary humans would prove they were anything but ordinary. The battle for New Pyongyang had truly begun. The second wave hit like a storm. 12 Vrelian warriors poured through the warehouse entrance with military precision. Energy bolts filled the air. Explosions rocked the building. The defenders fired back desperately. But everyone knew this was the end. There were too many raiders and too few humans left standing. Hana fired in controlled bursts, making every shot count. She took down one Vrelian, then focused on another. But for every one that fell, 2 more pushed forward. The defensive line was collapsing. Defenders were falling. The Vrelians were going to break through to the civilians. She couldn't allow that. "Fall back to secondary positions," the officer shouted. "Protect the civilians." Oh. The remaining defenders retreated deeper into the warehouse, forming a last line of defense in front of the cargo containers where the children hid. Hana found herself shoulder to shoulder with Woojin's father, both of them firing at the advancing raiders. "We can't hold much longer," he gasped, reloading his weapon with shaking hands. "We hold until the fleet arrives," Hana said firmly. "No matter what." A Vrelian broke through the line and charged toward them. Hana aimed at its legs, firing rapidly. The creature stumbled, but kept coming. It raised its massive arm to strike her down. She couldn't dodge in time. Then Woojin's father tackled the Vrelian from the side. The impact didn't hurt the massive creature much, but it bought Hana a second. She fired point-blank into the raider's exposed neck joint. The Vrelian collapsed, but its falling body knocked Woojin's father down hard. He didn't get back up. "No!" Hana screamed. She checked him quickly. He was breathing but unconscious. She dragged him behind cover, then returned to the fight. The situation was hopeless. Only 6 defenders were still standing. Ammunition was nearly gone. The Vrelians knew they had won. They were taking their time now, methodically advancing, eliminating the last resistance. The Vrelian commander stepped forward. It was the largest of them, covered in battle scars and decorated armor. It spoke in broken human language. "Surrender now. You die quickly. Resist more. You die slowly. Children die too." Hana checked her rifle. 2 shots left. She looked at the exhausted, terrified defenders around her. Then she looked at the cargo containers where the children hid. She could see Minho peeking out, his eyes wide with fear but also trust that she would protect them. She stood up, rifle raised. "Come and try." The commander laughed, a harsh barking sound. It raised its weapon to finish her. Then the roof of the warehouse exploded. Not from Vrelian weapons, from above. Hana looked up and saw them. Human gunships dropping through the smoke and fire. The fleet had arrived early. And they weren't wasting time. The warehouse filled with human soldiers. Colonial Marines, in full combat armor. They poured in through the broken roof, through the walls, surrounding the Vrelian raiders. The commander barked orders, but it was too late. The Vrelians were caught in a kill zone. All civilians, stay down, a Marine commander shouted. Fire teams, engage. What followed wasn't a battle. It was extermination. The Marines had heavy weapons, tactical coordination, and the element of surprise. The Vrelians tried to fight back, but they were overwhelmed in seconds. Some tried to retreat. They were cut down. Within 2 minutes, every raider in the warehouse was dead or captured. Hana lowered her weapon, barely able to process what had happened. They had won. They had actually won. A Marine medic rushed to her. "Ma'am, you're injured." Hana looked down and realized she was bleeding from multiple wounds. She hadn't even noticed during the fight. The adrenaline had kept her going. Now that it was over, the pain hit her all at once. She stumbled, and the medic caught her. "I'm fine," she said. "Check the others. Check the children." "The children are safe," the medic assured her. "We've got medical teams treating everyone. You need treatment too." As medics worked on her wounds, Hana watched the rescue operation. The children were being brought out from hiding, checked over, reunited with parents. Medical staff treated the wounded defenders. The dead were covered respectfully. Marines secured the area and began sweeping the colony for remaining raiders. The military officer who had fought beside her approached, limping but alive. "We did it. We actually held them off long enough. A lot of good people died doing it," Hana said quietly, looking at the covered bodies. "Yes. But a lot more lived because of them. Because of you." Outside the warehouse, the battle for New Pyongyang was ending. Human ships dominated the sky, hunting down Vrelian raiders trying to escape. Ground forces were retaking the colony sector by sector. The raiders who had seemed so unstoppable a few hours ago were now fleeing for their lives. A Marine colonel entered the warehouse and was immediately briefed on what had happened. He walked over to where Hana sat, receiving medical treatment. "You're the substitute teacher who held off the first wave?" he asked. "Former Marine," Hana corrected. The colonel studied her. "I've seen the security footage from the school. You barricaded a classroom and protected 12 students for hours. Then, you led them through occupied territory to safety. Then you helped defend this position against overwhelming odds. That's not a substitute teacher. That's a warrior." "I'm a teacher who did what was necessary," Hana said. "We could use people like you back in uniform," the colonel offered. "Someone with your experience and dedication." Hana thought about it. The familiar pull of military life. The clear purpose. The defined mission. For a moment, she was tempted. Then she saw the children. Yuna was being checked by a medic while clutching her sketchbook. Minho was staying close to his mother, who had been found alive. Jiwoo was explaining the beacon repair to a fascinated marine engineer. Nari was helping organize supplies for other children. Do-hyun was actually making a soldier laugh with a joke. Woojin was by his father's side as medics treated him. These children had learned hard lessons today. They had seen violence and death. They had experienced fear. But they had also seen courage. They had seen humans refuse to give up. They had seen adults willing to die to protect them. "No," Hana said finally. "Thank you, Colonel. But no. I found my mission. These children need teachers who understand what they went through. Who can help them process it? Who can show them that the world is worth protecting even after seeing the worst of it?" The colonel nodded slowly. "I understand. The offer stands if you change your mind." As he walked away, Hana stood up despite the medic's protests. She walked to where the children were gathered. They saw her coming and ran to her. 12 students who had trusted her completely, who had followed her orders without question, who had been braver than they knew. "Is it really over?" Yuna asked. "Yes," Hana said. "It's over. You're safe now." "Because of you," Minho said. "No. Because of all of us. You were brave. You stayed calm. You followed instructions. You helped each other. That's why we survived. Nari hugged her tightly. Will you still be our teacher? Hana smiled. If the school will have me, yes. Though I don't know when classes will start again. Soon, a voice said. Hana turned to see the school principal, Director Choi, approaching. She looked exhausted but determined. The colony will rebuild. The school will reopen. And I'm officially offering you a permanent position, Miss Kim. These children need you. I accept, Hana said without hesitation. The next few days were chaos. The colony began massive recovery efforts. Buildings were repaired. The dead were honored. The Vrelians had taken heavy losses and retreated from this sector of space completely. Word spread through human colonies that New Pyongyang had fought back successfully. Other frontier settlements took note. The raiders had learned a painful lesson. Hana received medical treatment for her injuries and formal recognition from Colonial Command. They wanted to give her a medal. She accepted it quietly, then donated it to a memorial for the defenders who had died. They deserved the honor more than she did. 2 weeks later, the school reopened. Not all of it. Some sections were still being repaired, but enough classrooms were ready. And the colony insisted that education continue. It was a statement that life goes on, that humans rebuild, that they don't let fear win. Hana stood at the front of classroom 7B on the 3rd floor. It was the same room where everything had started. The barricaded door had been replaced. The broken windows had been repaired. New desks filled the space. But some things hadn't changed. 12 students sat at those desks, watching her with familiar faces. Their parents had specifically requested that their children be in her class. Some parents had even moved their children to this school just to be in her classroom. Hana held up her tablet with the class roster. Good morning, everyone. Let's start with attendance. Mingyu? Here. Yuna? Present. Woojin? Here, Miss Kim. One by one, she called the names. The same 12 students who had trusted her with their lives. They all answered. Alive and safe. When attendance was finished, Hana pulled up the lesson plan. History class. But she changed the topic. Today, she said, writing on the board, we're going to talk about what makes humans special among all the species in the galaxy. Minho raised his hand. Is it because we don't give up? That's part of it, Hana agreed. What else? We protect each other, Yuna said. Even when it's dangerous. We adapt, Jiwoo added. We find solutions. We're brave when we have to be, Nari said quietly. Hana smiled. These children understood now. They had lived through something terrible and learned something valuable. They knew what humans were capable of when pushed. They knew the price of protection and the value of courage. All of those things are correct, she said. Humans are survivors. We're adaptable, protective, and stubborn. When other species would surrender, we fight. When logic says we should retreat, we stand our ground. Especially when we're protecting something we love. That's not just military strength. That's in all of us. Teachers, students, parents, workers, everyone. Through the window, she could see the colony continuing to rebuild. Construction vehicles moved between buildings. People walked the streets without fear. The shields were stronger now. The defenses better. But the real strength had always been the humans who refused to be victims. Woojin raised his hand. Miss Kim, my father wanted me to tell you thank you. He said, you saved his life. We saved each other, Hana said. That's what humans do best. She looked at her students, at their young faces that had seen too much, but were still hopeful, still ready to learn and grow. This was where she belonged, not on a battlefield, but in a classroom, teaching the next generation what it meant to be human. The lesson continued. Outside, life went on. The Vrelians would think twice before attacking a human colony again. They had learned what every predator throughout history had learned when they underestimated humanity. Humans are soft, yes. They choose peace when possible. They're smaller and weaker than many species. But when you threaten what they love, when you push them into a corner, when you make them choose between surrender and resistance, they become the most dangerous thing in the universe. Because humans don't just survive. They protect, they endure, they refuse to quit, and they teach their children to do the same. Hannah wrote on the board one final lesson for the day. The history of humanity in space. When we're pushed, we push back harder. The students copied it into their notebooks, understanding every word. Class was in session. The colony was healing. Life continued. And one substitute teacher had found her permanent home, protecting and teaching the future of humanity, one student at a time.